just a woman. She was thought to be in the wrong place. But no one knew at that moment. True power was about to walk through that door. Don't skip the story. Subscribe, because sometimes, even silence can change the world. When Anna Berger stepped into the terminal with a small backpack, she had no idea all eyes would be on her. She was wearing a simple gray hoodie and worn-out sneakers. Apart from a few strands of hair falling on her face, there was nothing about her that stood out. Among the crystal chandeliers, marble floors, perfectly dressed staff, and whispering elite passengers in the VIP lounge, Anna's presence was a disruption visible, yet a mistake no one dared to point out. As soon as the security guard saw her, he approached. His uniform shone with medals on the sleeves, and his voice was cold. "This area is for private jet passengers. Please move to the general terminal." Anna simply raised her head. There was no fear in her eyes, but she didn't defend herself either. The only reason she was in this lounge was to wait for her husband David, who was arriving on his private jet. Inside her backpack, she only had a book and a water bottle. She'd spent most of her life working in garages, learning aviation engineering through night courses. Now, she was here to meet the man she had started a company with years ago, a company that had grown into a giant corporation. But no one knew that, and she had no intention of letting them know. Among the passengers waiting in the lounge, there were silk scarves, designer bags, and silver business cards. Each one glanced at Anna's clothes and quickly looked away. Some were more ruthless. A woman lowered her glasses to the tip of her nose and whispered to her friend, "I think she's in the wrong place." Probably one of the cleaning staff. The laughter was quiet, but its echo was sharp. Anna stayed silent. She didn't look for a seat, didn't explain herself, just waited. She pressed her backpack tightly against her shoulder and stared out the terminal window toward the runway. When she heard the sound of the plane's wheels on the tarmac, there was a slight twitch in her lips, but no one noticed. The manager of the VIP lounge, Julia Weber, approached Anna, walking in a tight dress that looked like it had just come off a runway. Pretending to check something on her tablet screen, she spoke without a smile. "Could I see your ID and flight document?" Anna was about to answer when Julia cut her off. "Of course, I assume you don't have them. You can't jeopardize the security of this area. We'll have to move you to the waiting room." A tense silence suddenly filled the terminal. It was as if everyone sensed an approaching storm but didn't care, thinking it was just a regular woman. Anna didn't resist. She nodded and walked in the direction Julia pointed. But then something happened. Beyond the airport's glass walls, a black-bodied, custom-built jet appeared at the end of the runway. Its engine sounded like suppressed rage. A stir went through the lounge. Some passengers turned toward the windows. Julia's tablet almost slipped from her hands, because they recognized that jet. And more importantly, they recognized its owner. Anna had already been taken to a small room, isolated from the VIP lounge. The room was simple but locked from the inside. Through the glass partitions, the lounge was clearly visible. The security guard, Mark, was standing watch outside. For him, this was just procedure. The woman seemed suspicious. Whatever the rules, they had to be followed. But when he saw the jet approaching with its landing gear down, he instinctively grabbed his radio. The jet stopped. The stairs opened. At the first step, the whole lounge went silent. A man in sunglasses, with the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up to his elbows, stepped off the plane. His steps were quick. He wasn't wearing a jacket. His eyes were locked on the door. David Wagner, CEO of Sutton Group, founder of the company, and Anna's husband. When the door opened, the staff inside stood up, but David didn't even notice. He walked straight in. He approached Anna and asked, "Did they keep you waiting?" His voice was soft, but beneath it, there was a cold anger. Anna nodded and gave a slight smile. At that moment, everyone observing from outside held their breath. David turned and took off his sunglasses. At that moment, everyone understood. This woman was not just any special passenger. She was holding hands with the true owner of the terminal. David's presence had changed the entire atmosphere in the terminal. The laughter echoing in the lounge, the confident whispers, and the arrogant glances suddenly, all of it was replaced by deep silence. His shirt collar was open, sleeves rolled up. This man was strong enough that he didn't need to wear a suit. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor of the lounge, and almost reflexively, all the terminal staff stood up straight. David's stern but measured gaze moved from face to face. No one dared make eye contact. Finally, He came face to face with Julia Weber. "You applied the VIP isolation protocol this morning," David said, his voice so calm it was obvious there was a storm raging inside him. Julia tried to look away, but David's stare pinned her in place. "Why?" he asked. Julia swallowed hard, her voice shaking. "We couldn't verify her identity. And her appearance didn't meet the protocol." David stepped forward, but he didn't shout. "Appearance," he said in a low voice. "So, you isolated my wife just because she was wearing a hoodie?" Julia's cheeks turned red, and the staff members at the other end of the room exchanged glances and started to pull back. A visible panic began to seep beneath the corporate walls. In the VIP lounge, no one was clutching their luxury bags or gold watches anymore. It was as if they all realized the invisible threat before them. Because this man wasn't just a CEO, he was the one with a major stake in the terminal, the kind of person who could end contracts with a single sentence. David slowly turned to the door and walked over to Anna. He extended his hand. "Come on, let's get out of here," he said. As Anna nodded and stood up, something else rose with her. The shame of those who had belittled her, whispered behind her back, mocked her. Now, they were silent. David turned his back and stood in the middle of the lounge. "Now, everyone listen up," he said. "What happened here this morning is an insult not only to my wife, but to humanity. And there will be a price to pay for this." At that moment, the terminal's general manager, Michael Roth, rushed forward. His face was tense but professional. "Mr. Wagner, I've just been informed about the situation. Rest assured, I'll start the necessary procedures right away." David walked up to him. "The first action," he said, locking eyes with him, "is to remove Security Chief Mark from his position." Then, he turned his gaze to Julia, and the VIP lounge manager Julia Weber as well. Immediately, Julia's face went ashen. Her tablet fell to the ground, but no one picked it up, because it no longer mattered. David continued speaking. "None of you needed to know who Anna was. You shouldn't have been looking for a reason to show her respect, because respect is earned by character, not by business cards. And today you lost." A whisper came from the back row. "That woman is David Wagner's wife." Another person said, "But she didn't look like it," as if they thought it was against the laws of physics for a poor woman to be married to a rich man. But Anna wasn't just a wife in David's life, she was one of the brains behind their company. Many of the designs had evolved based on her ideas. But all of her success was hidden beneath her hoodie because her real wealth wasn't in her appearance, but in her intelligence. As David and Anna walked out of the terminal, no one could speak along the way. People lowered their heads. Those passengers, who had considered themselves superior for hours, were now condemned to silence. One woman hugged her daughter. The daughter whispered, "Mom, was that woman really his wife?" The mother simply nodded. Because now, everyone knew. Some truths come like the sound of a jet engine. At first, you don't hear it. But once they arrive, they shake everything. As David and Anna walked, a black car was waiting for them by the runway. But David turned back to look at the terminal once more. His eyes lingered on those still secretly talking, those who felt remorse, and those whose faces were still flushed with shame. "This is just the beginning," he said softly to Anna. "Everyone will see how rotten the system is." Anna nodded, but her eyes were smiling. "Not for me," she said. "I've always been the same woman." As David and Anna walked away from the terminal, they left behind not only a crowd in shock, but also a heap of shattered arrogance. Every shiny detail in the VIP lounge could no longer hide the decay beneath it. Michael Roth, the terminal's general manager, gripped his phone tightly. A message had appeared on the screen. "Staff list to be reviewed immediately. Instructions incoming. Sender, Sutton Aerospace Board of Directors." Julia Weber tried to quietly return to her desk, but her steps were aimless. The staff around her now avoided eye contact, acting as if she were carrying an infectious shame. Just a few hours ago, the woman who had walked confidently now wished to become invisible. When she reached her desk, her ID card was stuck in the drawer, but instead of pulling it out, she simply stopped. Because she knew, even if she pulled it out, it wouldn't open any doors anymore. David's words in the terminal weren't just an outburst of anger. They were commands that started the collapse of a system. Sutton Group's internal systems were now set in motion. It wasn't just the security chief or the lounge manager. All staff members' past actions were being reviewed. Flight records, complaint forms, VIP passenger reports. The silent reports that had been piling up in David's office would now gradually come to light. And Anna's notes, which she had been quietly keeping for years, were the key pieces of these files. At the back of the terminal, whispers began to spread among the staff. David Wagner's wife is an engineer. She's been with the company for years, but no one knew her. Maybe that new design in the project was her idea? Now everyone wasn't just questioning what had happened, but also what they had missed. Because failing to see someone like Anna wasn't just blindness, it was the result of looking with selective arrogance. Meanwhile, another crisis was unfolding in the lounge office on the upper floor of the terminal. Clara Hoffman was nervously rubbing her silver bracelet. "That woman ruined us," she said angrily. Her assistant, without looking up, replied, "No, we ruined ourselves. She just showed us." That sentence echoed in the room. Clara paused for a moment. Because she knew Anna hadn't done anything. She had simply stayed silent. But that silence was now echoing like a scream throughout the entire terminal. As Anna and David got into the black car leaving the terminal, they still hadn't spoken. As the car moved forward, Anna looked out the window, silently weighing what had passed through her mind. This system that had belittled her for years was now shaken by her presence. But it wasn't with a feeling of revenge, it was filled with justice. David turned to her and asked, "Do you want to talk?" Anna shook her head. "Not yet," she said. "Let them think. Let everyone hear what I've kept silent." At the same time, something interesting was happening in the terminal's information system. A video had been uploaded. It had no name, only titled Project Silence. It was a silent presentation Anna had prepared months earlier. An internal report documenting the inequalities within the lounge system, the discriminatory tendencies of the staff, and the gaps in the protocols. When the system administrator opened the file, he paused for a few seconds. Because the video had been coded to play on all the terminal screens, and the timer had already started. In the lounge, in the waiting area, and in the staff rooms, the screens began to turn on one by one. The images showed Anna. She had quietly witnessed different events at different times. The moment a passenger was turned away because of their clothes. The moment an employee turned their back on someone who looked low income. All of it had been recorded, documented, and silently archived. Now, everyone was watching. This was a confrontation. And as the screen faded, only one sentence remained. Respect is given by character, not by label. If it's not given to everyone, then it's given to no one. Everyone in the terminal was silent. Because that day, the glass walls might not have shattered, but the arrogance that had passed through them had been torn apart. As night fell, the glass walls of the terminal still seemed to tremble. The video that had been playing on the screens had already ended, but its impact was still being felt. In the VIP lounge, no one was speaking loudly anymore, laughing, or showing off their watches. What was once thought of as being special, only about being privileged, had now completely changed its meaning. And the person who made that change was a woman who came in wearing a hoodie. Rumors about who Anna was were spreading, but no one really knew. Some said she was a wealthy investor. Others thought she had just married well. Those who knew the truth were silent, just like Anna had been for years. Because her story wasn't some fairy tale about suddenly finding wealth. It was written with dusty engines, delayed scholarship payments, and hands worn from work. Years ago, when she was just 20, Anna worked in a small workshop. Her passion for mechanics started by fixing her brother's old bike, which later grew into working on engines and, eventually, airplane parts. She worked during the day and read books at night. Unable to pay for school, she enrolled in online engineering courses instead of going to university. Back then, there was no luxury, no support. But there was one thing, a quiet yet stubborn determination. "I'm not trying to be rich," she'd say. "I just want to be good enough." And that quiet promise was as powerful as a shout. She first met David at an aviation fair. Back then, David was with Sutton Aerospace, which was just a regional company looking for new designs and young talent. While watching a rude investor belittle Anna's engine design, David had noticed the quiet fury in her eyes. 3 days after the fair, David personally visited her workshop and asked to see the designs again. But Anna rejected him, simply because he was wearing a suit. "You don't need to wear a tie to take me seriously," she had said. That day, David hadn't just found an engineer. He had found a partner. Their marriage wasn't flashy. They never made headlines or posted photos on social media. Anna always preferred staying in the background. There was no reason for her to step forward. She designed, wrote analyses, and supervised protocols. Everything she did was hidden in the company's infrastructure, in its body, in its system. Like a part of an airplane that's invisible but makes it fly. Maybe that's why they didn't recognize her in the terminal. Because people lived in a world where only what's visible on the outside mattered. But Anna was one of those who knew what inner strength was. That night, Michael Roth, the terminal's general manager, called an urgent meeting with the executives. The room was dimly lit, with graphs showing the terminal's past operations projected in the middle of the room. But no one was looking at the presentation. Everyone's mind was on one question: what now? David's teams had already moved in the background. A new hiring process for the VIP lounge staff had been initiated, and all management positions were temporarily frozen. The corporate document known as the Dress Code Protocol was officially canceled. The new procedure was summarized in one sentence. The value of a passenger is measured not by what they wear, but by the respect you show them, without even knowing who they are. However, not everyone was ready for this new order. Clara Hoffman was still looking for a way out. "We can reverse this," she said in the meeting. "We could publish an apology video. The PR team can clean this up." But Michael shook his head. "We're too late, Clara. This story is beyond our control now." That woman's silence has echoed louder than everything we've said. Meanwhile, a cleaning worker walking through the terminal while emptying trash bins noticed Anna's video playing again on the screen. The woman's calm voice was heard once more. "If you judge people by their outside appearance, you'll never know what they carry inside." The cleaning worker paused for a moment. Then, he slightly lowered his head, because for the first time, he saw himself in that story. As the new day dawned, the marble floors of the terminal were still cold. But this time, the coldness wasn't due to the stone, it was the restlessness of change. The VIP lounge had opened early in the morning, but everything was different now. Every passenger was handed a notice. The notice read, "Being VIP is not about clothes, cards, or last names. It's about behavior. Respect is a fundamental requirement. From now on, everyone in this terminal has equal rights." For some, this sentence was a breath of fresh air. But for those used to privilege, it was almost a threat. That morning, business people, influencers, CEO spouses, and artists, all of them, when reading the notice in their hands, had the same expression: "Who messed with our system?" A hedge fund manager carrying a brown leather suitcase raised his voice at the entry staff. "I've been coming to this terminal for 10 years. If it's going to be open to everyone, why am I paying for a yearly membership?" Behind him, a woman representing a fashion brand slammed her bag on the ground in frustration. "If everyone's going to be allowed in, why am I special?" The staff simply smiled. "The definition of special has changed, sir." Just then, the large glass doors of the lounge opened. The person who stepped inside wasn't wearing a Gucci dress or adorned with expensive jewelry. She was again dressed in a simple gray hoodie, comfortable pants, and old but clean sneakers. Anna Berger was back in the terminal, but this time, something was different. People recognized her. Whispers spread, "That's the woman. She's Wagner's wife. She's one of the founders of the company. But why is she still wearing that outfit?" Anna didn't respond. She walked without lowering her head or avoiding anyone's gaze. She wasn't shouting with her presence, but her calmness resonated. Some passengers instinctively made space for her. Others looked away, because Anna's presence left them alone with their own arrogance. In the central waiting area of the VIP lounge, a few high-profile passengers were gathered. Particularly one group stood out. At the head was Claudia Stein, a famous businesswoman. Claudia was someone with millions of followers, always on the covers of magazines, as powerful as she was ruthless. The moment she saw Anna, she called out, "Well, welcome. Mrs. Berger, is it? So, now everyone's equal in our terminal." There was a hint of mockery in her voice. "I'm really curious. What makes you so confident?" Anna stopped. The lounge fell into silence. Everyone's eyes were on her. The people with Claudia smiled, as if supporting her. Anna slowly turned around. She didn't put her hands in her pockets. She didn't bow her head. She simply took a few steps toward Claudia and looked her directly in the eyes. "What makes me confident?" she repeated in a soft but clear voice. "The fact that you're here right now. Because a year ago, when you'd walk into this terminal, you wouldn't make eye contact with anyone and you'd walk with 5 people behind you. But today, you're directly asking me questions. That alone is change." Claudia's face tightened for the first time. Her smile disappeared. Anna continued, "My presence here bothers you because my silence challenges the shouting lives you lead. I wasn't raised with labels, but I survived with character. I'm used to working when everyone else laughs, waiting patiently when others look at me with prejudice. So, some people now see me sitting in this seat not as a threat, but as a balance." Suddenly, a few staff members at the back of the terminal began to clap. First timidly, then more boldly. Some passengers nodded. A few of Claudia's group stood up and moved to other areas. Claudia's face was rigid, but now she didn't know what to say. Anna sat down. A staff member approached and offered her a simple coffee. "Welcome again," he said. Anna smiled. "Now, I feel welcome," she said quietly. That day, everything in the terminal changed. The signs with written rules were taken down. In their place, a simple framed sentence was hung. "True value is hidden in a silent step." And everyone had witnessed that step. That morning at the terminal, it wasn't just new rules in place, there was a new spirit, a new understanding, a new order. Anna's quiet presence had settled over all the noise like a blanket. People now spoke more slowly, approached the staff with a "please," and when they looked at each other, it wasn't with judgment, but curiosity. The terminal's glass walls were still the same, but the world inside was completely different. The press didn't take long to cover the event. The first headline, "Unknown Woman Changes the System," quickly turned into "Sutton CEO's Wife, The Power of Silence," within a few hours. But Anna didn't read those stories. She had already learned to live in a world where people looked but didn't see. What mattered to her now wasn't just being visible, it was being valued. Truly, for who she was. Before heading to the company headquarters, David took Anna for a short walk. The sky was clear, but the wind was strong. They didn't speak for a while. Then David pulled out an old, worn piece of paper from his pocket. "I'm still holding on to this," he said. Anna glanced at it. It read, "If you can't change the system, add silence to it. Sometimes the greatest revolution happens without a single word." "The note I gave you at the fair," Anna said with a smile. "It changed my life," David replied. "Did I save your life then?" "No," David said, looking her in the eyes. "You made my life meaningful." Meanwhile, a small meeting was taking place in the terminal. The newly hired staff candidates were in their first day of training. The trainer was showing Anna's video. The paused frame showed Anna standing alone in the middle of the lounge. The trainer asked, "Why do you think they couldn't silence this woman?" One person answered, "Because she never spoke." Another added, "Because with her silence, she made us hear our own inner voices." The final directive posted on the terminal's board ended with a sentence that everyone walked by. "Where there is no respect, there is no prestige." Passengers like Claudia Stein left the terminal. "This is no longer my place," she said to the reporters. But no one followed her. Because this place was now one where no one had a special place anymore. No one was sad to see her go, because this change had given birth to others. The former cleaning worker was now at the new information desk. A young student who had once been excluded was now hired as an intern at the terminal. And behind all these changes, there was neither a face in front of the camera nor a hero waiting for applause. There was just Anna. One afternoon, Anna walked into the terminal's waiting area alone. She was holding a small box. She asked the staff member at the entrance, "Which seat is empty?" The staff member hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "The one in the middle. But everyone's looking at it now." Anna walked over, sat down, and opened the box. Inside was a small model of an airplane. It was a 3D print of the first engine she had designed. On the inside lid of the box was a sentence, "Where you're not seen, your design flies." She placed the model on the windowsill. No one noticed. But at that moment, the terminal gained another meaning. It wasn't just a point of transit anymore. It was a point of memory. A place where people could be understood without speaking, heard without a word. And that day, in the reflection of the glass, Anna's face lit up for a moment. Because now, even her silence was speaking.